Welcome to the Scars of Heart channel, and invite you to watch our new video featuring our original story. The hair salon was crowded that day. Clients were just leaving, as new ones were taking their places. Some tearfully begged to be seen without an appointment. Administrator Katya was scrambling to answer everyone, asking who to send, who to direct to the right stylist. It's understandable, the pre-holiday rush. Tomorrow is March 8th. Every girl, young and old, wants to look stunning. The stylists monotonously went about their work. The only sounds you could hear were the snip of scissors and the whir of a hairdryer. Meanwhile, the hairdresser's clients chatted on this day, in addition to the usual. Do you need to thin out your bangs or make the back of your head fuller? Conversations also included talk about what everyone would be cooking for the holiday table or what gift they'd ordered for their loved one. "Oh, I told mine not to give me those tulips," said one of the ladies with foil on her head. "I'm sick of them already. And what's the point of them? You can buy a decent frying pan for the price." "A frying pan?" giggled the hairdresser Yulia, a very young girl. "No, I want flowers. Even if they don't last long, but they're beautiful. It's March 8th after all, and you can buy a frying pan another time. Just like that." "No, dear," the old woman said from another chair. "Good dishes, a very nice gift, but it might never just happen. My grandfather gave me a new cauldron for New Year's. I asked for it myself. Oh, the pilaf turns out so wonderful. I've always been good at it, but Kazan is the best for this." The discussion smoothly shifted to the topic of what dishes are essential on the holiday table. Herring under a fur coat and French-style meat were the leaders. Anna listened to all this silently, energetically clicking her scissors. Her client also actively participated in the conversation. A couple of times she tried to draw her attention to her, but she stubbornly remained silent. March 8th is Women's Day. The fair half of humanity is in anticipation of this obligatory attention from their men. But Anna had no one to look forward to. Perhaps her son-in-law from out of town would call to congratulate her. Or perhaps a perpetually half-drunk neighbor, seeing her on the landing, would say, "Happy holidays." 6 months ago, Anna divorced her husband, kicked him out, and it still hurt so much. They'd been together for almost 25 years, preparing for their silver wedding anniversary. Their daughter was already married. It seemed like life would be a joy, but things turned out differently. Anna, having finished with her last client, tidied up her workspace and hurried out of the salon, although her colleagues were still lingering. They'd decided to share a bottle of sparkling wine, but Anna wasn't exactly thrilled about it. She stepped outside. It was already getting dark, and a nasty, damp wind was blowing. She pulled her hat down over her eyebrows and pulled the hood of her thin synthetic jacket up. But it was a bit early for her to change into spring clothes. Anya hurried to the bus stop, hoping her minibus would pull up any minute. Otherwise, she'd be frozen solid in the piercing wind. And it was as if someone had eavesdropped on her thoughts. Less than a minute later, a minibus pulled up with one empty seat. She managed to slip in just in time, sat down, leaned her forehead against the glass, and thought about her past. It just so happened that lately she'd been thinking only about the past, realizing that nothing could be brought back, and that her life had probably already passed. It was a shame that she didn't become what she dreamed of. Sad that she met the wrong person. It hurt that nothing could be fixed. The only thing that warmed her soul was her daughter Polina, a smart and beautiful girl. But once upon a time, Anna thought everything in her life would be better than anyone else. As a child, her mother and grandmother doted on her. She grew up in a loving and caring environment. Her mother worked as a nurse in a clinic. Her grandmother was a distinguished educator. She worked in a kindergarten her entire life and was the director there for many years. Little Anya initially dreamed of becoming a teacher, like her grandmother. But one day, after visiting her mother at work, she decided she wanted to be a doctor. This might have happened if not for several circumstances. Her grandmother died when Anya was in 9th grade, and her mother died when she was finishing school. She was hit by a drunk driver at a crosswalk, and so Anya was left alone in this world. She didn't know her father. Her mother never mentioned him. Anya kept thinking about having a frank conversation with her later, but she never had the chance. After all the stress, of course, the last thing on her mind was getting into college. She barely passed her exams, missed the application deadline, and when she recovered a bit, she realized she had to move on somehow. She had to earn a living, after all. So she started working as a dishwasher, then completed a hairdressing course, and began making people beautiful, forgetting about her dream. Anya met her future husband when she was 19, among some mutual friends at someone's birthday party. Mikhail was sociable, sweet, and knew how to woo her, and he was a doctor, a young therapist at the local clinic. When they first met, Anya had even admitted that she, too, had dreamed of going into medicine. "So, how old are you?" Mikhail would smile. "You'll definitely become a doctor, and we'll be colleagues." But they never did become colleagues. However, a romantic relationship quickly developed between them, which turned into soon they became close. Just 6 months later, they filed an application with the Legislative Assembly. Anya had no doubt that she had met her destiny, and Mikhail was content and happy. Only his parents, who lived in another city, expressed doubts. Was Anya really a match for their son? He was a doctor, after all, and she was a simple hairdresser. No, they didn't openly express their displeasure. All the confusion simply hung in the air, in phone conversations, during a polite meeting when the newlyweds went to their place for New Year's to get acquainted. Like, "Anachka, you're such a sweet, simple person." Yes, the girl understood everything, but tried not to attach much importance to it. After all, she wasn't living with Misha's parents, but with him. However, they soon calmed down when they returned the favor. Anya's apartment from her mother and grandmother was a decent one. There's nothing to say about that. It was in the city center with high ceilings. Yes, it needed some renovations, but that was secondary. Yes, it was only a 2-room apartment, but it was spacious. In short, by the time of the wedding, Misha's parents had come to terms with their son's choice and did not resist, and even helped with organizing the event. And everything was perfect after that. Anya was the happiest in the world, and when their daughter Polina was born, it seemed like there simply couldn't be a more perfect family in the world. Mikhail was very busy with work, but he always devoted his free time to his wife and daughter. They walked in the park together. When Polina grew up, they went with her to amusement parks and the circus. Anya strove to be a great wife and mother. She took care of herself and pampered her daughter. Her husband always wore an ironed shirt. The house was immaculately tidy, and the food was delicious. Anya looked after Polina until she was 3. Then she went to work at a hair salon near her husband's clinic. It was very convenient. In the morning, they took their daughter to kindergarten, then to work, each way, and in the evening, Misha picked Anna up. Anya's colleagues were genuinely envious. She had such a handsome, caring husband, and he was also a doctor. Only the elderly hairdresser Tamara pursed her lips and smirked. She once said outright, "Oh, Anna, your husband will show off his best yet." The young woman then merely looked at Tamara in bewilderment and said nothing. She assumed she'd blurted it out of spite. Tamara was generally a very sarcastic woman. And then came the first shock. A young girl made an appointment at their hairdresser's. She got an appointment with Anna. She sat her down in the chair and kindly asked what the client wanted. The girl looked at her curiously, showing her how and where to trim her hair. And so, everything seemed to be going well, And then the client's phone rang, and she herself handed her the phone from the nightstand. "Oh, Misha," the girl chattered. "And I'm at the hairdresser's." "Yeah, I had an appointment before lunch." "Yes? And you?" "Oh, you still have 2 calls. Fine. I'll leave the hairdresser's and call you." "Yes, we'll meet at our cafe." Meanwhile, Anya was clicking her scissors as usual. You'd think there were so many Mishas in the world, but for some reason the client's words made her wary. The thing is, when she handed him the phone, she read the name of the person calling her beloved, and the voice on the other end sounded like her husband's. She gave the girl a decent haircut, but she became pensive, and once after she'd fluttered out of their hair salon, warning the owner, she rushed off for some reason. Followed, the hairdresser Tamara looked after her sympathetically. Or maybe it only seemed that way to Anya when she turned around on the way out. The client clicked her heels ahead, and she walked at a distance. At some point, she involuntarily backed away. It was her husband who was hurrying toward the girl. He ran up, kissed her, said something with a smile, and then looked back and saw her, Anna. He turned pale, recoiled from his companion, and rushed toward her, and she from him. She ran into the hairdresser. Her husband followed her, trying to explain something, to justify himself. Like, she misunderstood everything. And how else could she understand when he was hugging another woman in front of his wife? "That's it. A divorce," Anna shouted. Mikhail somehow deflated, mumbled something, then left the hairdresser's shop to the general condemnation of the women's eyes. And then, everyone tried to calm Anya down. She was sobbing heartily and couldn't stop crying. And then that same Tamara said some wise words to her. "Anya, don't rush into things. You were shouting about divorce, but that was in vain. You have a daughter growing up, she needs a father. Other people have dads, but she doesn't. And a man, he's a man. They're all like that. Do you think mine didn't cheat? He certainly did. And now he's an old man, almost 60, and he keeps staring at the young ones. Just bear with it. Everything will work out." "Tamara Andreevna, but how can we live with this?" Anna said tearfully. Silently, her colleague answered quietly and turned away. That day, Anna was let off early from work. She returned home having already decided everything for herself. She did not take Tamara Andreevna's words seriously at that moment. Mikhail was already home. The aroma of something baked wafted from the kitchen. Her husband looked out and said guiltily, "Darling, I just decided to cook your favorite chicken and potatoes." Anya did not have time to say a word when Polinka ran out of the room screaming, "Mommy has come," and rushed to hug her. "I picked up my daughter from kindergarten early," Mikhail hastened to add. Anna, who was already mentally prepared for a scene, was at a loss. How could she sort things out in front of a child? She didn't say a word to her husband, went into their daughter's room, and played with her, although her thoughts were elsewhere. Afterward, Mikhail called them to the table. He got ready. On the table, in addition to the roast, there was juice, wine, fruit, and a bouquet of flowers. He sheepishly handed the last one to Anya. She took the flowers and indifferently placed them on the windowsill. Mikhail himself put them in the water. Then a silent feast. After eating, the daughter ran off to her room, and they sat there without uttering a word. "Anya, I want to explain everything." Mikhail finally broke the silence. "Explain what?" "My betrayal," Anna answered angrily. "Yes, there was no betrayal. It's just Sveta. She's a nurse from the neighboring area. She's been pestering me for a long time. And she knows I'm married. She set it all up on purpose." Mikhail began to speak quickly. "She found out which hairdresser you work at. She went on purpose, and I had to call her about work, and it was precisely because of work that you are listed in her phone as her favorite. And did you kiss her for professional reasons? Anna asked, narrowing her eyes. No, that didn't happen. Mikhail was embarrassed. I saw. Anna raised her voice. And she screamed. That's it, her patience was over. As if she had broken a dam. She screamed at her husband, accused him and cried. Mikhail wrung his hands and swore it was all a misunderstanding. Afterward, he defended himself, saying it wouldn't happen again. Oh, it won't happen again, Anna exclaimed. Yes, you're right. It won't happen again, because I'm divorcing you. That's it, get out of here. Anya, don't get so worked up. We have a daughter, Mikhail muttered. I'll raise her myself. And you, don't dare show your face to her again. Pack your things and get out. And then a frightened Polinka ran into the kitchen. She was about 5 years old then. The little girl apparently realized that her mother was sending her father away. The girl screamed and cried. I don't want Daddy to leave, she exclaimed over and over again. Anna tried to calm her down. Mikhail tried to do the same, but Anya wouldn't let him near his daughter. And then something terrible happened. Polinka started having convulsions. And then Anna got scared. Mikhail took the child from her, did something, and called an ambulance. Polina was taken to the hospital. Anya stayed with her in the hospital for several days. Afterward, they were told that everything had happened due to stress, and the most important thing was not to provoke the child again. Otherwise, epilepsy was just around the corner. And then Anna realized she simply had no right to be offended. Yes, she would forgive Mikhail for her daughter's sake. They made peace, and life went on as usual. And it seemed happiness had returned to their home. Mikhail also picked Anya up from work. They picked up their daughter from kindergarten and spent their free time together. After a while, everything settled down and returned to normal. One day, Anna saw Mikhail with another woman, not that young, flirtatious Sveta, but a sophisticated woman. They were leaving a cafe. Yes, there were arguments at home, but in whispers. And when Polina was sleeping, Mikhail again swore it would never happen again. And Anya believed him. And then there were several more explanations. Anya believed him. Then she didn't. She simply lived with her husband for their daughter's sake, and lived. And Polina grew up smart and beautiful. Her health was excellent. After school, their daughter entered a Moscow economics university and left her parents, returning only for vacations and occasionally for holidays. And Anna and Mikhail tried their best to pretend that everything was fine. Anna, of course, tried harder, remembering even after all these years the horror she'd experienced when her daughter became ill. She thought it could all happen again. And Mikhail, he continued to live like that, occasionally having affairs, sometimes with colleagues, sometimes on the side. He sometimes even didn't come home overnight. Over the years, he became convinced that he would always get away with everything. Anna would tolerate everything. They basically lived like neighbors, only pretending to be a happy family in front of their daughter. Anna tried to open her own hair salon several times, but it never worked out. Either there wasn't enough money, or there wasn't enough time for all that. And Mikhail continued to work as a local therapist. No, he was a good doctor, but for some reason the salary wasn't that great. Did Anna earn more than him, or was she just unaware of something? Yes, she didn't know. Then, it turned out that Mikhail already had a second family on the side. A child was growing up there. Anya found out by chance. She saw her husband with a young woman and a stroller. They were walking, just like he and Polina once had. And she understood everything, and didn't even approach them. Although Mikhail saw her, he began to fidget again. And in the evening, Anna asked him point blank if it was his child. Her husband didn't beat around the bush. He confessed that the chief physician's secretary had a child with him. Such an old man. He's already 47. And still the same old thing. He's got a devil in his ribs, so to speak. Anya wanted to divorce him right then, but then Polina called and told me she was happy. She'd be getting her diploma in a month and applying to the Legislative Assembly. She said she'd already submitted her application with Dima. They were planning to visit them. "We'll marry off our daughter and then get a divorce," Anna said dryly. "And I don't want your spirit in my apartment." Keep in mind, Mikhail suddenly answered matter-of-factly, "We'll divide the property. I'm also laying claim to my share of the apartment." "What are you laying claim to?" Anna asked again. "I got this apartment from my grandmother before I got married, but I invested so much in it. I checked with lawyers. You will have to compensate me for everything." "And what did you invest in it?" Anna grinned. "I hammered in a couple of nails, and even then they were crooked. Okay, I'll pay you for the nails." And for some reason, there was no resentment or pain in her soul. Everything burned out. Anna calmly accepted the upcoming divorce and her husband's claims. She was so tired of everything, as if she were already 100 years old. But her daughter's wedding was ahead. Yes, they celebrated it decently. They went to the capital, met Dima's parents. Everything is fine. The newlyweds moved into Dima's grandmother's apartment. Polina and he work for the same trading company, and it's clear they love each other very much. At the wedding, Anna secretly wiped away tears every now and then, hoping her daughter would be happier than she was. And then, the divorce happened. Of course, Mikhail didn't get any share of the apartment. He took the car, the huge television, and some other things. However, Anna no longer cared about these trifles. Let him endure everything, as long as he was out of her life. When Mikhail was packing his last belongings, Anna was in the apartment, watching him. She couldn't believe she'd lived with this petty man for so many years. "Yes, that's mine too. My mother gave me this for my birthday," Mikhail said, taking a seascape painting down from the wall. "It's old, cracked in places." Anna even chuckled. She'd have to throw it away less, and when her husband left, slamming the door, leaving the keys on the nightstand, she suddenly burst into tears. That's it. She's alone. And her whole past life was like some kind of fog, a vision that suddenly vanished. Why had she spent all these years building a home, a villa, a family nest? She cried, and then such anger overcame her. She needed to get rid of everything that reminded her of the past, of her husband, and she began throwing out everything that irritated her. The curtain in the bedroom, the blanket, some books, vases. She went to the trash bin several times and took out the bags. The last thing to go was the rug. A large rug on the wall in the bedroom. It had been in the apartment before Mikhail Babushkin came. Anna had been tempted to throw it out so many times, but she felt sorry for it. It seemed like a genuine Persian rug, and it was a memory of her grandmother. But that evening, in a fit of rage, she tore it off the wall. It was so heavy. Anna realized she had no strength left, and so she only managed to roll it up and stuff it in the closet. She decided to throw it out a little later, but in her soul, she was simply burning with a thirst for renewal. She fell asleep thinking that tomorrow she would definitely rip out all the wallpaper and start renovating. After all, she had just gone on vacation. There was time for that. In the morning, her enthusiasm had waned a bit. She didn't tear down all the wallpaper in the apartment, but started with the kitchen. Her daughter, who had learned from her father that her parents were divorced, found her in the middle of the renovation. She didn't call. She came herself, and even brought her young husband with her. "Mom, you lived so well," the daughter said. She blinked her eyes in confusion. "How did it happen that you got divorced?" "Darling, it happened a long time ago," Anna answered, stirring the wallpaper paste. "Your father and I just kept quiet," and she told her daughter everything as it happened. Polina was shocked. And so was Daima, who thought his wife's parents had an ideal relationship. Afterwards, the newlyweds calmed down a bit and got down to work on the renovation. So unexpectedly, in a week, Anna's apartment was transformed. For so many years, my husband and I couldn't renovate. And then suddenly, it happened. New wallpaper in every room, including linoleum in the hallway, touched up some paint here and there, whitewashed it, even installed new interior doors, but that was when they called in professionals. Beautiful, Polina and Daima crawled away from Anna, thinking they would come to reconcile their parents, but instead, they ended up with a construction crew. Polina decided, if Mom is so happy, let her live. And Dad, he seemed to be doing well too, although he was a little hurt. And Anna? Yes, she was fine on the outside, but the emptiness in her soul only grew. The realization that she was alone at 45 hurt deeply. And now, sitting in the minibus, she recalled the conversations at the hairdresser's. Everyone would be congratulated, everyone was getting ready for the holiday, and she, it seemed, was just off to the side. After getting off at the bus stop, she finally decided to go into the store and buy something tasty. She would throw herself a holiday. And somehow, she got so carried away that she threw in a decent amount of goods. 2 bags were needed. Puffing and leaving the store, Anna cursed herself inwardly. Why had she bought so much? 2 cartons of juice, 3 types of cheese, some kind of sausage, mushrooms, and a lot of other things. But why had she bought wine? Happy New Year, some old man in a shabby jacket smiled at her half-drunk, holding the door of the store. Thank you, Anna muttered and walked out into the street with her luggage. She smiled sadly to herself. Yeah, now only old men would congratulate her on the holiday, and those homeless-looking ones at that. Normal men don't even look in her direction. She's been alone for 6 months now, and she still hasn't met anyone. And she didn't even try, but still. However, she doesn't need anyone. She can handle everything herself. She has a new life. And then, for some reason, she remembered the rug that had been languishing in the closet. As they say, when starting a new life, you need to get rid of everything old. Maybe this rug was to blame. And Anna, lugging heavy bags, firmly decided that she would come home now and get rid of this garbage collector. And tomorrow, March 8th, her new life would definitely begin. Yes, let it be such a start. The entrance hall smelled familiarly of cats, fried potatoes, and something vaguely reminiscent of incense. Anna twitched her nose, clutched the bags weighing her down tighter in her palms, and rushed up the stairs. No, tomorrow would be her holiday too, and tomorrow she would definitely meet someone who would change her whole life. In the apartment, still wearing her shoes, she went to the kitchen, laid out the groceries, then headed for the closet. The carpet stood forlornly, its corner pressed against the travel bag, which hung on a huge disheveled nail. Anna confidently pulled the carpet toward her. It lay softly on her shoulder, as if a swan had laid its neck. The woman groaned at the weight and stepped out of the closet. As luck would have it, the carpet suddenly refused to leave its shelter, as if it understood the fate awaiting it. But Anna tugged, with all her might, and apparently the dust collector had caught on that very nail. She tugged again, something cracked, and the rug obediently fell into Anna's hands. Already in the hallway, she suddenly lost her grip on it, and it fell to the floor with all its might. The woman cursed and sat down next to it, tired, and now she had to drag it to the trash. She looked longingly at the rolled-up roll, at her hands, red from the bags. But no, she had to. Anna stood up with a sigh, trying to figure out how best to scoop up the rug. And then, an object caught her eye. It had clearly fallen out of the rug and was now lying on the new linoleum, glinting indecently. Anna crouched down in surprise and picked it up. It was a gold medallion with a chain. Where did it come from? The woman examined the edge of the rug and saw that a small pocket was sewn on the back. It was torn on one side. Apparently, it was this pocket that had caught the rug on a nail in the closet. But what kind of locket was this? Whose was it? Anna turned it over in her hands and felt a tiny button. The locket opened. On one side was a photo of a young girl who looked very much like her. On the other, a dashing man, a sailor in a sailor's cap and a striped vest. And the inscription around the edges, Natalia and Pyotr together forever. In the girl's photograph, Anna, of course, recognized her mother, and her name was indeed Natalia. But who was this young man? Could it really be his father? The guess took Anna's breath away. After all, her patronymic was Petrovna. The woman no longer thought about the carpet. Pushing it against the wall of the hallway, she took off her jacket and boots and went into the living room. She sat down on the sofa, confused, continuing to examine the medallion. What a find! And what should she do with it now? All her life she wondered who her father was. And now, it seemed, his photograph was in front of her. Anna spent the rest of the evening in confusion. Who hid this medallion? Her grandmother? Or her mother? And why did they hide it at all? What was the need for it? The woman put the kettle on again and again, but forgot to brew a mug. She was boiling again. She didn't even notice how she'd eaten a piece of sausage and some cheese. She was still thinking about the machine, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She'd just uncovered a secret, but she couldn't quite figure it out. If this was her father, could he be found? Like a tiny photograph, nearly 50 years old. Anna examined the locket again, and only now noticed that it was clearly not made of cheap gold. It looked like an antique. And if that was the case, she could try to find out where it was from, where they could have made them. So, on International Women's Day, Anna decided to go to a pawn shop. True, she wasn't sure whether they were open on the holiday or not, so she fell asleep, confused, covered with a blanket. In the morning, the doorbell woke her. Wrapped in a blanket, disheveled and sleep-deprived, she trudged to the door. So that's who had arrived on a weekend. Mikhail stood there with a bouquet of her favorite red roses. He looked guilty and confused, shifting from foot to foot. "What do you want?" Anna muttered instead of greeting. "Hello, Anya. Happy holiday to you." Mikhail handed her the bouquet and took a step toward the hallway. "Thank you, of course," Anna chuckled, but took the bouquet. "Why are you here so early in the morning? What about your young wife and child?" "Anya, I wanted to talk," her ex-husband said humbly and looked at her, with that puppy dog look. "Interesting." She shrugged, thought for a moment, and stepped back. "Well, come in." Mikhail didn't need asking twice. He readily slipped into the apartment. Anya went into the kitchen, trying not to look at her ex, who was perched on a stool, clasping his hands together and pressing them between his knees. Just like a puppy, Anna noted to herself, turning on the kettle. Surprisingly, she had no feelings for him at all. It was as if a stranger had come, and not the one with whom she had lived for many years, and with whom she had a daughter. "Anya, I want to ask your forgiveness for everything," Mikhail finally said hoarsely, cleared his throat, and added more confidently. "I'm so sorry before you. What can we do now?" Anna answered indifferently, putting the roses in a vase. "The past can't be brought back?" "Yes, it can't be brought back," Mikhail repeated and added passionately. "But we could try to start all over again. I promise, this time everything will be different." "This time?" she asked in surprise. "And how will your current wife react to this? Is she really like me? Will you tolerate everything and not notice? Will you also live for the sake of the child?" "But no wife and child," Mikhail replied hoarsely. "What do you mean, no?" Anya, I'm divorced. You understand? She deceived me. Oh, so that's how she deceived me, Anna chuckled nervously. And Mikhail, ignoring her blatant mockery, continued his story. It turns out his young wife, his Lenachka, had given birth to another man's child. The deception was exposed when Mikhail learned the baby's blood type. After the birth, it didn't even occur to him to inquire. Apparently, his young wife had clouded his mind, and then he personally looked at the baby's medical records, and with his blood type, there was no way he could have had a child with Sasha's. Of course, there was a showdown with his wife later, and she admitted to having had a fleeting affair with another colleague, the surgeon Victor. And although Lena swore it was a mistake, a one-time lapse of consciousness, Mikhail didn't believe her. Even though Victor admitted to him in a frank conversation that yes, he and Lena had a relationship, and he wouldn't mind continuing it. But she's Mikhail's wife, and now it's somehow awkward. I quit the clinic. I can't stand the sight of this Victor, he said, nervously squeezing his hands. Fingers, Mikhail said. Now I've got a job at a private clinic, and I'm surprised I didn't do it sooner. Anya, I'll earn many times more there, and the hours are more relaxed. And there are pretty young doctors and nurses there too, Anna added sarcastically. Anna, I assure you, I've changed, Mikhail exclaimed, looking at her pleadingly. During this time, I've undergone some kind of rethinking. I realized that I don't need anyone in this world except you. We have a daughter. Yes, a daughter, Anna said thoughtfully. I definitely gave birth to her from you. But you know, Misha, something's burned out. I don't want anything. Anya, I'm not rushing you. You should still think about it. Maybe it can't. Would you like some tea? She answered monotonously. The ex-husband nodded obediently in response, and then drank tea with jam. Anna also sipped from her cup, occasionally glancing at the shabby womanizer. Yeah, he was obviously worried, but she didn't care. It was strange. Just yesterday she was walking home feeling upset, that no one needed her, that her life was over. But today, it seemed, life had given her another chance at family life. But no, she definitely doesn't want anything with this man. Or is she in a hurry? Anna turned to the window, pensively gazing at the settled snowdrifts and the cheerful arugula on the windowsill. Maybe she was just still resentful. After all, she had had so many good times with Misha. She had loved him very much once. Mikhail said something. Anna didn't hear it right away, turned around, looking at him questioningly. I'm telling you, you did a good job renovating. Hired a team, Mikhail repeated. He cheered up a bit, settled in and looked somehow more in charge. No, she managed it herself. Polina and Dima arrived at the right time and helped. Only the doors were installed by specialists. Well done. It's so nice now. I never thought our apartment could be so cozy. Wasn't it cozy before? No, I didn't put it that way, Mikhail said, embarrassed. You've always been a good housewife, wife, and mother. I just didn't appreciate that. At least I understand it now, Anna replied as indifferently as she could. But something stirred inside her. Could this really be that feeling? No, it couldn't be. It was all over. Anna shook her head and looked straight at her ex-husband. Thank you for the holiday wishes, but you have to go. Are you waiting for someone? He asked, his voice wary. Yes, Anna lied without a shadow of a doubt. I have a date today. But if that's the case, Mikhail muttered. Sorry for bothering you. Yes, I'll go. Sorry again. I realize that I'm no longer in your life. That's right. He stood up, left the kitchen, then suddenly turned towards the rooms. I just want to stay here one more time to see how everything is now, he explained as he walked, guiltily looking away. But I can't kick him out. Anna, crossing her arms, leaned against the wall in the hallway. All that was left was to wait for him. Wow. came his surprised exclamation from the living room. "You've never had anything like this before." Anna looked into the room. On the nightstand lay the very same medallion. Mikhail stood nearby, examining it from above, not daring to pick it up. "Anya, this is gold. A very expensive thing." "What did you think?" She chuckled. "Where from? What difference does it make to you?" "It was a gift, the one who is supposed to come to you." "Exactly, Anya. Be careful. If they give such things, then the demand will also be considerable." Mikhail looked at her with concern. "I'll keep that in mind, Misha. Go away," Anna answered nervously. I was starting to get annoyed by his persistence. It was a pretense of concern. The last thing she needed was his concern. Why would she tell him where that medallion came from? Mikhail didn't say another word. He nodded goodbye, threw on his jacket in the hallway, put on his shoes, and left, muttering something like, "Take care." She only sighed heavily in response, clearly showing that she was tired of his presence. In fact, this wasn't true, but some inner malice suddenly awakened within her. Misha left, and afterward she sat in the kitchen for a long time, drinking cold tea, looking at the bouquet. And for some reason, she wanted to cry again, but she held back. No more tears for her ex. He was nothing to her. Afterwards, her son-in-law, daughter, friends, and colleagues called. Everyone congratulated Anya with all their hearts on the holiday. She also responded to the female half with congratulations, not even expecting her phone to be so active that day. After lunch, having taken out some sausage, cheese, and some other things from yesterday's purchases, grabbing a bottle of champagne, she sat down in front of she watched TV, drank, ate, and Soviet films. And her mood seemed to improve. Only occasionally did her glance fall on the locket. And then, questions were born in her soul. No, she definitely wouldn't look for answers to them today. A little later. And yet, after the holidays, Anna, taking the locket, went to one of the pawn shops. She chose the one that, according to the internet, had an excellent jewelry appraiser. "An interesting thing," said the appraiser, carefully examining the locket, then looked at the woman with curiosity. "Madam, where did you get it?" "I inherited it," Anna answered readily. "And do you have the documents?" "Yes," the woman lied, realizing that there was no point in going into details. "But I don't understand how much it would be worth now. It's antique. I don't yet know where they could have made something like this. I'd be interested to know." The appraiser turned the piece over thoughtfully, opened it, glanced at the photographs inside, and then turned his gaze back to Anna. "I won't dare to name its price or origin just yet. The engraving, of course, it was made later, and this makes the product cheaper, but it is still very interesting. If you leave it, I can find out everything in more detail," he said after a pause. Something in his voice alerted the woman, and she shook her head. "No, it's not necessary. I don't really need it. For me, this locket is just a memory. The main thing is that I now know that it's not a cheap trinket." Having thanked him, Anna left the pawn shop, but for some reason with a certain feeling of anxiety. And afterwards, all day, working with clients, she could not shake off some kind of excitement. Before her eyes stood the image of that appraiser, an old man with a keen gaze. His creaky voice sounded in her head. "Where did you get this thing, madam?" The first thing Anna did when she returned home was to again hide the locket in the carpet, sew the bag tightly shut, and then return the carpet back to the closet. Let it lie there for now. An inner feeling told her that it would be better this way. And yet, thoughts about her father's thoughts haunted her. Perhaps he was still alive. She spent a long time going over in her mind relatives who could help her close this curtain. Secrets. I remembered Aunt Lyuba, who lived in the village. She used to come with a cousin of Natalia, Anna's mother, and it seemed they had been good friends in their youth. Lyuba lived in the city at the time, studying to be a pastry chef, then moved in with her parents, got married there, worked in the collective farm canteen her whole life, and must still be alive, since her few relatives hadn't reported anything. Relatives only call like that when something bad happens. Anna herself hadn't spoken to her aunt for many years. They only saw each other at her mother's funeral. Then they'd call each other for a few years, wishing each other happy holidays. But in recent years they'd grown distant. Anna dialed her number, but it was silent. The woman decided to see her in person and went to the village the following weekend. Lukyanovka was about 100 kilometers outside the city. Jerking around in the dusty minibus, the woman was very worried about how their meeting would go. What if the woman didn't recognize her and didn't want to talk at all? The bus pulled into the village just as the March sun was setting. Anna anxiously got off at the stop, knowing that if the woman turned her away, she'd have to spend the night there. Street, after all, the next bus wasn't until the morning. Anna was still in school in this village, but many people remembered where to go. Aunt Lyuba's house should be the second from the end of the street on the right. As she approached, she froze in confusion. It looked like the same house, but not the same. It used to be a simple village hut with picket fences and a wooden gate, but now it was a brick house with a tiled roof and an iron fence. The woman hesitantly pressed the gate handle, and it gave way. Anna stepped into the yard. It was immediately obvious that the owners lived well. A spacious garage, solid barns. A dog's bass voice boomed from the enclosure. Anna backed away, seeing a huge dog. An alibi, it seemed. And then the front door opened, and a tall, strong man of about 10 years old peered out. "Who do you want?" he asked quite amiably, wiping the corner of his mouth. "Hello, Aunt Lyuba used to live here. I'm Anna, her second cousin," the woman answered timidly. "A niece, you say?" The man chuckled. "Anka, or what?" "So I'm Seryoga. Don't you recognize me?" "Sergei," Anna gasped. He was Aunt Lyuba's son. They used to talk to him when they came with their mother to guests. Anya remembered how he taught her to swim in the local lake, took her into the forest, taught her to pick mushrooms. After school, he went into the army, then apparently worked in the north, but Anna didn't know what happened next. They didn't really talk. "Exactly, Anya," Sergei smiled. "Although she's grown up, of course." "Come in, your mother's home. We were just sitting down to dinner." Soon, Anna met Sergei's family, his wife Tamara, a friendly woman, and their son Oleg, a grown man. It turned out that Sergei had settled in his native village after his time in the north and taken up farming. He was doing well. He'd just fixed up the house, and his mother was living with him. Natasha expected to see Aunt Lyuba as an ancient old woman. However, she looked nothing like her 70-something years. Slim and lively, she recognized Anna immediately. "Oh, how you look like your mother," her aunt said, hugging her. Later, after talking and explaining their situation, they promised to reconnect and not get lost again. It turns out, however, that phone number had been changed a long time ago. It's just that Anna couldn't get through. "Aunt Lyuba, I actually came to see you on business," Anna finally admitted. When the rest of the family went about their business, he and his aunt went into her room. "So I understand," the old woman nodded. "Tell me why you've come." "Aunt Lyuba, you and my mother were on good terms in our youth. You're the only one who can help me." "Tell me, did she ever tell you anything about my father? Who is he? Where does he live or lived, and why did you suddenly need to know?" She lived her whole life quietly, and then suddenly remembered. The aunt looked at her with curiosity. "Yes, here's the story, you see. I found a photograph of him and my mother. I realized that he was a sailor, and that's all. My mother never told me anything about him, but I still want to know. And what kind of photograph is that?" The old woman suddenly tensed up. Anna hesitated a little and admitted that she had found a locket, and on it were those same small photographs and an inscription. A locket. Then Aunt Lyuba pursed her lips. Her voice suddenly changed, became harsher, and the old woman herself seemed to shrink all over from tension. She was silent, clearly thinking about something. Anna also didn't dare continue the conversation. She waited. "No, your father wasn't a sailor but a criminal," she finally said. The old woman. That's exactly why your mother kept silent about him. It was unpleasant, the truth. A criminal? But he's wearing a sailor's uniform in the photo. What does that mean? Anna gasped. He dressed up as a sailor and took a photo. Pyotr was quite the lover of masquerades, the aunt frowned. After a little hesitation, she told the following story. A young nurse, Natalia, once met a dashing sailor. She was walking along the embankment with her friends, and then there he was, handsome and talkative. Natalia herself didn't notice how she fell behind the other girls, left in the company of her new acquaintance. Pyotr joked around, treated her to ice cream. They drank lemonade. Everything was decent and nice. Then, during their first meeting, Pyotr told her that he was a sailor from a ship. He stayed in their port for a week. Natasha was simply charmed by the young man. Probably, that's when they took a photo on the embankment. And then the images were reduced to the size of a medallion, but no one will ever know for sure. Lyuba learned about her cousin's suitor. Her cousin herself admitted to her that fell in love at first sight. Lyuba was envious then. What a lucky sister. They dated for a week, strolling in parks, on the embankment, going to the cinema. Then, Petya supposedly left, promising to write. They would return in a couple of months, and a week later Natasha saw him in their city. But now, he was wearing a white coat, supposedly one of Natasha's colleagues. Petya was leaving the house with a suitcase, as if he were on a call. Natasha ran up to him, but he backed away from her, put his finger to his lips, and walked away, quickening his pace. Natasha didn't understand what was happening, but that same evening Petya ambushed her outside her house and confessed that he was an undercover police officer. He has to assume different roles to expose villains. Naively, Natasha believed him and forgave him for his lie. They continued dating. Very soon, Anna's grandmother learned about her daughter's affair. Elizaveta Andreevna once encountered her daughter's lover right in their apartment. Elizaveta Andreevna realized it wasn't her books Natasha had been reading with this young man. She kicked him out and slapped her. For the first time in her life, she acted so unpedagogically. And then, she cried, and Natasha too, insisting that her mother had been hasty and that she and Petya would soon get married. Elizaveta Andreevna didn't believe it. This young man seemed very slippery to her. She forbade her daughter to see him. But did Natasha listen? Some time later, Petya gave her that very locket with the photographs. "Mama, you see, it's gold," Natasha exclaimed happily, showing Elizaveta Andreevna the jewelry. "Petya gave me this. He truly loves me. After all, if he didn't feel anything for me, he would start giving me such expensive gifts. That's what's alarming," her mother replied then. "The jewelry is clearly very expensive. Where did this young man buy it with? Or do they pay that much in the secret police? Natasha, leave him before it's too late, and give me back this locket, or I'll throw it away." Natasha was frightened by her mother's words and temporarily gave the medallion to Luba for safekeeping. She trusted her cousin as much as she trusted herself. Besides, Lyuba was living alone in an old woman's apartment in a private sector. She hid it safely, put it in a jar, and buried it under the apple tree where her owner lived. She didn't even go. And then something terrible happened. Natasha was summoned to the police station. And that's where she learned everything. It turned out that a repeat offender had been arrested the day before. He easily gained people's trust, and often dressed up in various uniforms. Yes, it was Pyotr, and Natasha was summoned because the police had seen Pyotr walking Natasha home before detaining her. They questioned her, checking to see if she was his accomplice. Natasha just cried. In the end, the police believed she was innocent and let her go. True, the girl lied a little. When asked if Pyotr had given her expensive gifts, she said no. She really didn't want to give up that locket. Still, despite everything, she continued to love Pyotr. When Elizaveta Andreevna talked to her daughter, she also remembered the locket and asked if she had thrown it away. And then Natasha confessed, saying she'd given it to Lyuba. Elizaveta Andreevna remained silent in response, but the next day she went to Lyuba and demanded the locket back. Lyuba, who already knew everything, gave it back. Why would she need unnecessary trouble? And Elizaveta Andreevna, she really did intend to throw away the locket, but for some reason she didn't, and only she could have hidden the jewelry so cleverly in the carpet. After all, Natasha remained convinced to the end of her life that her mother had gotten rid of the locket, and Anya, when Natalia realized she was pregnant, kept silent for a long time. She didn't tell her mother, afraid she would demand the worst. However, Elizaveta Andreevna, when she realized everything with her feminine intuition, simply hugged Natasha and said calmly, "Never mind, my dear. We'll grow up with a child, and it will be ours alone." And so, it happened. Anya grew up in the love and care of her two closest relatives, and Pyotr, what became of him, was unknown. Natasha still loved him, the fool, waited, then went to the police to find out where he was and how he was. She was told he died in prison. That's how it is, Aunt Lyuba finished her story. Anna was shocked. This wasn't the truth she expected. So what can she do now? What can she do? After spending the night with relatives, Anna left Lukyanovka in the morning. She invited her relatives, and everyone in town would be visiting her. Relatives don't need to be separated like that. Move away. When Anna entered her apartment, she gasped. Everything in the house was turned upside down. All the closet doors were open. Things were dumped on the floor. Furniture had been pushed aside. Her favorite cacti were knocked over. The pot was broken. Everything in the pantry was also in disarray. And that same carpet was lying in the hallway. Anna remembered about the secret pocket. Yes, indeed, the fabric was ripped. The medallion was gone. The woman called the police. Of course, the first thing they asked was what was missing. Apart from the medallion, nothing, Anna answered, looking around the devastation. She was so hurt and offended. Her renovated apartment now resembled some kind of battle on the ice. "What kind of medallion?" the investigator asked inquisitively. Anna told how she had recently found this gold thing. After a little thought, she told him how it came to be in their family. The investigator was even more intrigued by all this, and he promised to definitely get to the bottom of everything. He also advised her to be careful with unknown finds, and not to trust just anyone. "Which pawn shop did you go to?" the investigator asked finally. Anna answered, looking very surprised. Could that appraiser really be involved in all this? And, remembering her anxious feelings after talking to him, she silently agreed with the investigator. It was quite possible who else knew about the medallion. She shouldn't suspect strangers from Lukyanovka. Less than an hour after the guards left, there was a knock at the door. It was Mikhail. The thing is, Anna called her daughter after what happened and told her everything, and she had already informed her father. So he came rushing over. "Anya, are you all right?" he asked anxiously, standing in the doorway. "Fine, but now I'll have to clean up here until nightfall," Anna replied sadly. "Let me help." "Misha, when have you ever helped me around the house?" she said with a sad smile. "Now I'll help," he replied, and stepped into the apartment without invitation. And then, taking off his coat and shoes, he began straightening and rearranging something. Anna stood and looked at him. A sudden suspicion stirred in my soul. Mikhail had seen that medallion too, but no, that was too much. Misha was a womanizer, but not a criminal after all. They finished cleaning up well after midnight, and somehow, unnoticed, they even made up while chatting. At least Anna was already answering her ex-husband more softly, even smiling a few times. Maybe we should grab a bite? The bandits didn't empty the fridge, Mikhail asked, putting the last book back on the shelf. Yes, everything seems to be intact, Anna smiled. But I didn't cook anything. Sausage and cheese will do. I wouldn't refuse a crust of stale bread right now, Mikhail answered modestly. But the bread is probably a problem. I rarely buy it anymore. What about B vitamins? No, Anya, you need bread. But you doctors keep saying that bread is bad for you, Anya joked. Bad is when you devour a loaf in one sitting, but a couple of slices are only good for you, Mikhail replied, already heading to the kitchen. He was feeling more and more like the boss, and for some reason, this no longer irritated Anna at all. Afterwards, they sat at the kitchen table, chewed sausage with bread, drank wine that had been bought for the holiday, and talked, reminiscing about their first years of life. Together, the birth of their daughter. And then, they were sad. Why did everything turn out this way? Yes, Mikhail blamed himself for everything. But Anna also caught herself thinking, maybe she shouldn't have been such a weakling back then. If she'd given her husband a hard time, he'd cheat less. It wouldn't have reached the point of total indifference. Anya, maybe we should try to start all over again, Mikhail reminded her again. She just shrugged, smiled, and put her finger to her lips. Don't rush. And Mikhail understood her and nodded in response. That night they slept separately, she in her usual bed, and he in his daughter's room. And for some reason, they both couldn't fall asleep for so long, listening to each other's breathing. And a few days later, Anna was called to the police. The investigator told her that, based on her description, they had determined the nature of the locket she had in her apartment. Many years ago, a jeweler had been robbed in their city. The robber was that same Pyotr, they later found out. And among the stolen items, the locket was listed. All the jewelry was later found, but the locket vanished into thin air. What made this piece of jewelry remarkable was that it had an emerald on the front. Tiny, but very expensive. There was no stone there, Anna was surprised, remembering the medallion. Although there really was a small indentation and something like a twig, I thought it was intended that way. That's probably where the stone was attached. The investigator nodded, sighed, and added, Anna Petrovna, I believe the criminals were looking not only for the medallion, but also for this very stone, and they might come back for it again. But I never saw it. I understand. Perhaps your father took it out before he gave it to your mother. But the criminals don't know about this, so until we find them, be careful. Try not to walk outside in the evenings. Don't open the door to strangers. Is it that serious? More than that? We questioned your neighbors. No one saw anyone. But from the surveillance cameras across the street, we have established that very dangerous criminals are most likely involved in the robbery of your apartment. And what did the old man from the pawn shop say? Nothing. The investigator shrugged. He disappeared and never showed up at his address. A chill ran down Anna's spine. She realized that difficult times were ahead, and why didn't her grandmother throw away that damned medallion back when she took it from Aunt Lyuba? Mikhail was waiting for her at the station. What are you doing here? Anna asked in surprise. I'll accompany you everywhere now. Seriously, he said. I talked to someone from the police. He's a patient of mine from my previous clinic. So, Anya, it's serious. I know. That's it. You know everything too. Now I'll be with you everywhere. Anya wanted to smile, but it didn't work. For some reason, after all these years, she suddenly looked at her now ex-husband differently. No, he wasn't childish, nor was he some kind of narcissist. A real man who could stand up for his woman, and all his escapades were more and more forgotten. "How will you accompany me if you also work?" she noted. "I took unpaid leave," Mikhail explained. "Is that possible?" "As I recall, it wasn't encouraged at your clinic before. I work at the medical center now." "Yeah, they weren't too keen on it there either, but they let me go." Anna nodded silently in response. She really didn't like the whole situation, and Mikhail's wishes it was even pleasant to be near him now. Mikhail had moved back into the apartment. However, Anna said it was temporary. He agreed. He had been seeing her off and picking her up from work for several days now. They talked, living under the same roof, but only as friends. Anna left the hairdresser's and headed to the bus stop. Suddenly, an old Lada pulled up next to her. Before Anna could react, a strong man jumped out and shoved her into the car. She didn't even have time to scream. And inside the car, she saw the same old man from the pawn shop. The car took off. Anna looked at her captors in horror. There were 3 of them, the same old man, the big guy next to her, and the skinny driver, who kept smoking and glancing at her in the mirror. "Who are you and what do you want?" Anna finally managed to say. "Madam, we've met before. I see that you recognize me too," the old man said in a hoarse voice. "So let's be honest, I need very little from you. Give me what doesn't belong to you." "But I didn't take anything that belonged to someone else." "I don't argue. You didn't take it. It was yours, as I understand it. Father Petka is a blockhead. Are you talking about the medallion? But you have it." "It was you who was in my apartment," Anna exclaimed. "Smart one," Verzila chuckled next to him. "Yes, sir. I don't apologize for causing you inconvenience, but we couldn't do otherwise," said the old man. His voice became even sharper. "Where did you put the stone?" "I didn't see it. It wasn't in the medallion. I don't believe it. The stone was there when Pyotr took the jewel from the apartment. I was also in the apartment and saw the medallion with my own eyes. But I got it in the same state that you have now," Anna exclaimed. "I see. To be honest, the girl doesn't understand, so we're going to the forest," the driver spoke up. "Yes, my dear, to the forest," answered the old man. "Why to the forest?" Anna whispered in horror. "There you will tell us everything." Verzila grinned. And then the driver started cursing and maneuvering. Then there was a dull thud. Anna saw a familiar car blocking their path. It was her husband's car. The driver jumped out and, throwing punches, advanced on Mikhail, who had also already exited the car. But then a siren blared, and a minute later the SWAT team was already at work. The police arrived. The criminals were captured. Anna, barely alive with fear, was pressed to him by Mikhail, and she did not resist. For the first time in many years, she felt her husband's protection, his support, his strong shoulder. They stood by the car and were silent. "Mikhail Alexandrovich, why are you so thoughtless?" The investigator approached them. "Why did you set up your car? Now we've got to deal with such repairs." "I'll fix this little thing," Mikhail responded dully. "But I couldn't do otherwise. I was driving behind them, and yours were somewhere far away. And then that 9 started accelerating. I was afraid that we would lose them." "Did you know that I was in the car?" Anna raised her head and looked at her ex-husband in surprise. "I was just driving up to you when I saw this big guy pushing you into the car. I realized that I myself wouldn't be able to fight you off on the spot." "I called the police," Mikhail explained. "Well, from then on, he acted according to the circumstances." "Your husband is a hero," the investigator smiled. Anna said nothing, only hugged her husband even tighter. A hero and so dear. Later, everything became clear. Indeed, that old man, his name was Pavel Grigorievich. His friends called him Grinya. Many years ago, he was at a jeweler's robbery with Pyotr, standing lookout, so to speak. He was the tipster, as he was already quite knowledgeable about jewelry. When Pyotr was arrested, he went into hiding and luckily avoided prison. He kept quiet for many years, working in a pawn shop, but he remembered the robbery and knew that the medallion, which had been the reason for the entire robbery, had not been found among the stolen items. Incidentally, it was because of Pyotr's medallion that they decided to kill him in his cell based on his tip. They demanded that he tell them where he had put the jewel, but the fool said nothing. When a young woman came to the pawn shop, he recognized it immediately. Yes, the medallion was missing a stone. There were those stupid photographs and a stupid inscription that Pyotr himself, as he understood it, had written. But still, the medallion was worth a lot, and the stone had to be found. Grinya put two and two together and realized that Peter had given the medallion to his beloved. Anna had shown her passport at the pawn shop, so the old man knew where she lived. He realized she was Peter's daughter, and she had clearly taken the stone. She was also quite a woman, all right. Like his father. That's what he thought. He found help among his fellow criminals. They broke into the apartment. They ransacked it, but found only the medallion and left with it. But they hadn't abandoned their intentions. So they kidnapped Anna to extort the truth about the stone. The criminals were sentenced to lengthy prison terms, and Anna and Mikhail eventually reconciled. Mikhail brought back what he'd taken. True, they later threw out half of it together, like that very carpet. Yes, they decided to start over with a clean slate, this time without betrayal, without omissions. They'd been through too much before realizing how miserable they were without each other. Their daughter was the happiest for them. Polina was happy that her parents were back together. They were the perfect couple. After some time, Anna finally carried out her plan. She opened a small beauty salon, and her husband helped her. Mikhail even took out a small bank loan, just so his wife would be happy. Now he values her and loves her very much, and he doesn't need anyone else in this world. But the stone was never found. Although Anna had some guesses, one day Sergei from Lukyanovka came to visit them. He was in town on business. Aunt Lyuba also volunteered to go with him. They all sat together at the table and chatted heartily. And when the men went out onto the balcony to chat, Anna decided to ask, "Luba, was there a stone in that locket your mother gave you?" "What stone?" the woman asked in surprise. There was nothing there. She seemed sincere, but her eyes gleamed slyly. Or maybe Anna had only imagined it. However, she didn't pursue any further. If this stone had helped someone in life, then thank God she would live without it. Besides, she never needed someone else's, but her own. She realized that she shouldn't give away her own to anyone. Yes, you shouldn't tolerate resentment for the sake of something or someone, but you should try to fix everything. Maybe not right away, maybe little by little, maybe through mistakes. And you need to learn to forgive.